Hey, my name is Mr. Edwards, and today we're going to talk about natural resources. The first thing we're going to do is kind of define some really important terms that we're going to be using related to natural resources. We're going to think about what are the most common natural resources that show up in our daily lives, and then we're going to ask an important question. Are we using our natural resources in a way that allows us to make sure we're going to have them for as long as we need them? These are some really important things for us to consider as we start talking about earth and environmental science. So let's go ahead and get started. So natural resources pretty much represent the most important gift that our planet has given to us humans. Natural resources are the materials and the substances that humans go out into the natural world, into our planet's ecosystems and spheres, and we find and collect in order for us to use them and turn them into everyday products that we use to make our lives more comfortable and more successful. The problem, though, with our reliance and use of these natural resources is that we really like the stuff we can make out of them. And there are a lot of humans on this planet, and we all like stuff, so lots of people plus lots of stuff equals not a lot of natural resources left out in those natural ecosystems and environments where we found them. And that has big impacts on the survival of other living things out there. The plants, the animals, the bugs, the birds, the fish, even the bacteria that are all an important part of how those natural ecosystems function. They all struggle to survive when humans go out into the environment and over-harvest those natural resources. That means we collect too much of them, and we keep going back over and over again and continue getting more and more natural resources because we want more and more stuff. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have stuff. I like stuff. I have a lot of stuff, but we have to be careful about how much stuff we accumulate as humans, because every single item we have, every product we use, every piece of trash that we throw away, it all came from natural resources to begin with, and it probably can't ever be used again. So that means that all of our stuff has a way bigger cost than just the money we paid for it when we bought it at the store. It costs in natural resources. It costs in terms of what happens after we're done with it and we want to get rid of it. All of that has a huge impact on our planet's systems and spheres. They can't keep functioning properly without the natural resources that keep them in balance. And every time humans go collect more natural resources from the earth, we mine coal, we cut down trees, we dig up and remove soil, we pollute rivers and streams, we leave our trash on the ground for someone else to pick it up. Every time humans use more stuff, we use more of the planet's natural resources. And most of those natural resources that we rely on don't come back very easily, if ever at all. So what happens when we run out? What happens when there's no more natural resources to make all of our stuff? You know, that reality and the consequences of our actions is an important part of what we're here to learn about in earth and environmental science. So today we're going to take a few minutes to consider how can we more carefully use our natural resources? How can we understand how they might impact the planet's natural systems and spheres? And can we think about ways that maybe we need to change our daily lives in order to make sure those natural resources will still be around for the future? Natural resources are any material or substance that comes from the earth. Since they're natural, that means they come from Earth's systems, from underground beneath the Earth's surface in the land, or from underwater in the Earth's rivers or lakes or the oceans, or even the ground at the bottom of the ocean floor, from the air we breathe, the sunlight that radiates into our planet's atmosphere in from out in space, the plants that grow in forests and natural ecosystems all around the world, trees, flowers, vines, plants of all types that produce fruits and vegetables that we eat as a part of our diet, and even the animals that survive out in the wild. Those are all natural resources. Agriculture or farming is a really good example it's a really interesting model for us to look at for how humans use and manage Earth's natural resources. A farm is a place where we intentionally use the land to grow plants and animals to be used for food and other purposes by humans. Now, the machines and chemicals and treatments and buildings and strategies for raising the crops and livestock in whatever way we want them to grow, that's all human influence. So that's the anthrosphere, right? That's human impacts, and it's not natural. In fact, the whole idea of a farm itself is not natural. So most of what we do there shouldn't be called a natural resource. However, the plants that we grow originally came from natural environments. These are types of plants that humans found in nature, in the wild, over the past 10,000 years or so. So the plants themselves, we call them crops when they're grown on purpose on a farm. The plants can be thought of as natural resources. The same is true for the animals. We call animals grown on a farm livestock. These animals aren't exactly the same version of the species that we originally found out in the wild thousands of years ago, but they are still a natural resource that grows from the Earth systems. The soil and the nutrients that allow the plants to grow, that's a natural resource. The water and sunlight that allow the plants and the animals to grow, those are super important natural resources. The oxygen in the air that allows them to survive, a natural resource. So even though a farm wouldn't exist without humans messing with and adapting the natural environment for our own purposes, farms do show a lot of really important examples of natural resources that humans rely on, how we've learned to use them for our own benefit, and how we have to manage them so that we always have enough for the future. Modern agriculture has plenty of negative environmental impacts, but its existence is probably the best example we can find for how human survival relies on our ability to utilize the natural resources we have found on our planet and can continue to use for the future. So what are some other natural resources we should know about? What are the most important and most necessary natural resources that humans have come to rely on in our modern world? Well, let's start with some of those same ones that we just named. Water, sun, air, these are most definitely the most important natural resources for life on our planet. In fact, this special combination is what makes our planet so unique in our solar system. There are no other planets anywhere nearby us in outer space that have this special combination of natural resources. And we're pretty sure that life, at least life as we understand it, can't survive anywhere in the universe without all three of these things. These are also natural resources that we can think of as being in unlimited supply. We basically have so much of these natural resources that we can trust that they'll never run out on our planet. Now, that's not technically true, and problems like air pollution and water pollution are definitely shrinking the amount of usable, breathable, drinkable air and water that are available on Earth. So we still have to take care of these natural resources. We just know that they are available in really gigantic quantities compared to other natural resources that we use a lot. And even more importantly, when we use them, water, air, and sunlight are almost always reusable. Just because we've used them once doesn't mean we can't use them again. We breathe air in and out, and then we can still go breathe that air in and out. We use the sun's energy one day to create electricity using a solar panel, or plants use sunlight to make glucose for food in their leaves through the process of photosynthesis. But the very next morning, we get another full day of sunlight that we can continue to use all over again. When we drink water, it nourishes our bodies, systems, and cells, and then gets cycled out as waste when we go to the bathroom, and it's still water. We're going to clean it first and make sure it's sanitary, but that water is still water, and it's still usable for life to keep on surviving on Earth. That's why we call these renewable resources. No matter how many times we use them, they can still be used again. They're available in large enough supply that we don't expect to run out of them as a global natural resource. There are other examples as well of renewable natural resources. So plants and animals like trees can be used and then regrown to replenish the supply. The cotton that was used to make my shirt, the wood that was used to build my house, the poor chickens and cows that will eventually show up in my lunches and dinners this week, they can be grown in quantities and continue to provide their role as a natural resource in our modern world. We still have to do some work to replant those plants and raise the next generation of those animals and make sure that we have all the nutrients and energy that allow them to grow back. But they can come back within a reasonable amount of time, a few months, a few years. Renewable natural resources like sunlight, air, and water will always be an important part of Earth's systems as long as we take care of them as we use them. Now, there are also many examples of natural resources that aren't so plentiful, that are available in much more limited supply, and when we use them to make our stuff, they are not likely to get back into the Earth's natural systems and cycles soon enough for us to be able to use them ever again, at least not for probably millions and millions of years, which I'm sorry to be the one to break the bad news to you, but I won't be here and nor will you be here to see that ever happen. So that means, as far as we're concerned, these would be non-renewable resources. It doesn't make them any less important or useful, but it does make them more delicate as a part of Earth's natural systems and spheres. So these other valuable natural resources that can't be used over and over again and aren't available in large quantities on our planet, they would include, for example, most of the energy sources that we use to power our everyday lives today. So coal, petroleum, or oil, they're the same thing. And natural gas, it's technically called methane. It means the exact same thing. We've built our entire global modern world around cheap energy sources that we dig out from beneath the Earth's surface. And we've been doing this now for about 200 years, all along, using more and more to provide for more people in more places, using more technology and different forms of energy all along the way. While it would be great for this to last forever, using these fossil fuels, they're called fossil fuels because they come from the remains of things that used to be living millions and millions of years ago, so fossil, and we use them for energy and fuel, so fuel like in our cars. These fossil fuels are getting harder and harder to find. And while we're really good at developing new technologies that help us continue accessing them even further and further into the Earth's surface, this comes with a lot of risks, a lot of costs, and a major global environmental crisis. All of the carbon, that's the element that makes these fossil fuels so useful as an energy source, from the coal, oil, and gas that we've burned all over the world for the past 200 years, has now built up in our atmosphere and has already drastically changed the way some of our Earth systems function. Our uncontrolled use of these natural resources has had the unintended consequences of throwing most of our spheres of our planet totally out of whack, and it's only getting worse day by day. So not only will these non-renewable natural resources become harder to find, and even eventually they're going to run out, they also have much larger problematic impacts on the Earth's natural systems. Now, fossil fuels aren't the only non-renewable resources that we as humans rely a little too heavily on. We've also built basically all of our computers and smartphones that our society and economy relies on today out of a small set of special metal elements. We call them rare earth metals. These are things like lanthanum, cerium, neodymium, dysprosium. What? I mean, yeah, they all have weird names like that. But these are what make your cell phone work. These metals are the secret ingredient that has allowed us to build an entire global community that communicates using the internet and electronics. And these special metals are in very limited supply, and yet we keep building more and more new technologies that only work with these special elements. Eventually, we're going to run out. In 2018, for example, there were about 1.8 billion, that's billion with a B, new cell phones manufactured, each containing a tiny bit of each of these rare earth metals. Okay, think about all the things we rely on our cell phones. I got mine sitting right here next to me, right? Think about all the things we rely on them to help us with today. Think about how often we go get a new cell phone. And what do we do with our old one? Most often, that little bit of metal that made your old cell phone work, it can't be recycled. It'll never be used again, and instead will end up in a landfill where it will stay for millions of years and never be usable again. That's on top of the fact that there wasn't much of that special metal element available on Earth to begin with. Yikes, I mean, we've got a problem. And it doesn't stop with our cell phones and computers and tablets and Chromebooks. Non-renewable natural resources make up the majority of the materials and substances that we as humans go out into nature to collect and use to build more stuff. Aluminum and tin are used to make everyday containers like soda cans. Phosphorus is necessary for plants to grow. Animals and humans need minerals like zinc and potassium and magnesium and sodium and calcium. We need those for our bodies to function healthily. No electronic device that we've created recently in the last 20 or so years functions without silicone. And metals like copper, iron, titanium, silver, gold, they're all necessary for the buildings humans use to create safe and comfortable places to live, and they're all available in limited supply. And we've already been using that supply for the past 200 or more years. These other important natural resources won't be around forever, especially at the rate we're using them now. In fact, your generation is likely to be the first to have to suffer through massive shortages of everyday products and materials due to the lack of necessary natural resources. So yeah, we've definitely got a problem, and you should be frustrated by that. That's the reality of past generations are passing on to you. As you get older, you will have to pay more for the same products your parents and their parents and their parents before them all used. New technologies will be delayed when the necessary materials can't be accessed because they're simply not available in high enough quantities. And everyday conveniences will become less common because there are simply not enough natural resources to make them. What are we going to do? Well, there actually is a solution. And it's a pretty simple solution, even though it comes with a lot of really complicated small steps that will need to happen in everyone's homes, everyone's schools and workplaces and local communities and governments all over the world. But if we can take this one important step, we can change the future of our planet. The solution is sustainability. To sustain something means to keep it going or to make it last for a really long time. So sustainability is really all about sustaining our planet, sustaining the Earth and its natural resources. Intentionally using our natural resources today in such a way that we know we will always have enough for the future as well. Notice, I'm not saying that we should stop using natural resources. Humans have been so successful in fighting disease and poverty and suffering all across the globe because we've learned to creatively harness the natural resources that our planet provides for us. We should keep utilizing those natural resources that we've used to build our modern world, but we need to be much more careful in our use and management of those natural resources, and we really need to rethink our focus on stuff. So that means me too. When we think sustainably, we plan ahead. We find ways to reuse old items and materials for new purposes, and we don't just throw it out for convenience. We carefully consider whether things can be recycled instead of being sent to a landfill, and whether we can donate or gift or reuse things in a way we hadn't planned to before. So sustainability is the answer. Sustainability, intentionally using our resources so that we will always have enough. It's a lot easier to say than to actually do, but it is doable. And it is necessary if we want our world to keep going the way we know it. We need to rethink how we buy and use and throw away stuff. We need to reimagine how we can keep using the stuff we already have. We need to reconsider whether or not we even need that stuff in the first place. And we need to strategically and intentionally manage the natural resources that our planet has available and carefully plan how we want to use those natural resources so that we will always have enough. Keep thinking about it.